I think at this point we now have two public commentors. So while you all, while you all leave the stage there, I will ask whether Brendan Foht. Great. If you wouldn't make your way to the podium, please. Mr. Foht is from the new Atlantis. Just to remind you, 3 minutes dedicated to each public commenter, and the lights should go green, yellow, and red in that order.
Sure, of course.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to make a couple of remarks about how the issue of mitochondrial replacement might fit into the sort of broader context of debates over assisted reproduction. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to say a few words here at this meeting, and I'm also quite grateful indeed that the Institute of Medicine has convened this committee under the sponsorship of the FDA to address the ethical issues surrounding these new reproductive technologies, especially considering how so many techniques for creating children, many of which pose risks that are still poorly understood because of insufficient monitoring, as we've sort of heard about a bit here, none of these have ever been subject to clinical trials to test their safety and efficacy, to say nothing of their ethical or social implications. So I'm also hopeful in this context that the committee will, take seriously the possibility that in considering the ethical and social implications of these technologies, we might think that there are, in fact, good reasons simply not to approve clinical trials if these prove to be, ethically problematic. And I'd also like to just close with sort of brief remarks by noting that many of these reproductive technologies that are already in common use that have never been subject to clinical trials and so forth do in fact raise similar issues to those raised by mitochondrial replacement technology. So you think in terms of the germline modification and the control over the genetics of future offspring, this is similarly raised by pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, which arguably offers sort of more genetic control over future generations than MRT really would. There are also, of course, questions about the safety of techniques and the micromanipulations that are being put on these embryos and oocytes that were similarly raised by technologies like PGD or intracytoplasmic sperm injection. There are also questions, of course, about the exploitation of egg donors that would be raised by MRT, but are, of course, raised by egg donation as well, and other forms of collaborative reproduction that confound the relationships between parents and children in terms of the three-parent relationship and surrogacy and things like that. And I don't bring these examples up to say that this means that MRT should be accepted because it has so many precedents, but rather to consider the possibility that some of the moral scrutiny that's now being directed towards MRT might be directed back towards these practices that perhaps warrant some re-examination. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on our list is Rick